what a great atmosphere over at Coleman Coliseum, not only for game day early in the morning, but 8 hours later for the contest where Tennessee and Alabama played. And LT, my big takeaway from that was Alabama's defense did enough to win the game, but Tennessee's pretty good defensively too, and Alabama didn't get enough offense. You get enough defense, but not enough offense in a game that likely was going to decide the SEC regular season championship, and Alabama drops one.
Yeah, if you would have said, hey, Alabama's going to hold Tennessee to 81 points, Dalton Connect, after coming off 39 points this past week in an unbelievable performance, goes 5 of 14, 1 of 7 behind the arc, and 13 points, you'd have been like, I feel pretty good about this.
That's right, 1 of 7 behind the arc.
But who would have known that Alabama would have absolutely shot themselves out of a game? 1 of 17 down the stretch.
Yep. And it's crazy. What was it, a 7-point lead right there about midway through the second half for Alabama? And I thought to myself right then, I was like, okay, this is starting to trend. Alabama's won 16 straight SEC games at home for a reason. They got off to a sluggish start in this game. There were a lot of fouls being called on screens, which is not typical of a Tennessee-Alabama game. Usually, that's a physical game. Rick Barnes' teams, they'll put hands on you, and they were calling it pretty tight. It got Alabama into foul trouble, but I thought that's the way the game needed to be officiated to help Alabama out. And it ended up costing Alabama some foul trouble, including Grant Nelson, who has now gone back-to-back games of not being a huge contributor offensively because he spent a lot of time on the bench.
Yeah, and fouls out, as you allude to there. But, I thought the difference in the game was kind of the end of the first half. When Alabama was down 10 and then took a lead going to half, I was like, here it comes. Like, it almost looked like it was really going to get away from Tennessee. And then you said they were down 7, and Alabama just, they couldn't hit a shot. They couldn't buy one. And you thought down the stretch, if they could somehow get back-to-back shots, they were going to win that game, and they never could.
Every point along the way this year, Nate Oats has been talking about winning an SEC regular season championship. So now I wonder, and you'll hear from him here, I want your reaction. How does this team come down off of that game Saturday where now they don't control their own destiny anymore? And they got a tough road game at Florida tomorrow. Here's Nate Oats now sort of putting this final week into perspective.
We made 2 of our last 13 field goals. We didn't score a field goal for about 9 minutes. We got to make better decisions down the stretch. I thought they were the quicker team to a lot of loose balls throughout the night. If you're going to win a championship, there's championship-level plays that have to be made that we didn't make. And when you get a 7-point lead against a good team, you can't take possessions for granted. I thought we threw away way too many possessions on the offensive end. So, we got to learn from it. We're playing a lot of freshmen and sophomores. They need to grow up in a hurry. If we're going to try to have a shot to win these last 2 and try to make a run at the SEC tournament, we need those guys to grow up and play a little more like juniors and seniors and freshmen and sophomores. But you got to give Tennessee a ton of credit. They put together a tough veteran group that figures out how to win games, and they've been winning some tough games.
Yeah, and Lance, I'm going to tell you, I thought from the beginning of the season, even when they weren't in first place, I've always thought Tennessee was the team most likely to make the deepest run in the NCAA tournament, despite what Rick Barnes has done forever. They're on top of the SEC standings now. They go to South Carolina and at home and then to Kentucky, so they don't have an easy landing. But I think the SEC standings through 16 games has shaken out about right. I think Tennessee's the best team in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tennessee's the best team in the league. We got this coming up on 4 downs. Look, there is an outside Hail Mary-like chance that Alabama could still win the regular season outright if they're able to take care of business against Florida. Arkansas and Tennessee loses both those games against South Carolina and Kentucky. I think Tennessee will be favored even at South Carolina.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to be favored at home against Kentucky.
South Carolina is a glass house to me. They don't even belong in the conversation as one of the 4 best teams.
I still think they're a good team. They're one of those sneaky teams that can get to a Sweet 16, and it's just been an unbelievable from where they were last year to where they are this year. But Alabama's going to be an underdog against Florida in Gainesville. They should be able to take care of business against Arkansas, but last week it was Nate Oats talking about how bad this defense was, and he was kind of alluding to, I don't know if they've got the championship medal that you need.
Yeah, because defense wins championships. You got to have a certain amount of
and I don't know
physicalness to do it.
Where there's a weakness on this Tennessee team. Like, you talk about protecting the basketball, not turning it over. They only had 2 turnovers in the second half in a hostile environment. And even when Tennessee wasn't making shots, 12 of 40. By the way, we had 56 missed threes on Saturday night. Did it look that bad in the arena?
Well, Alabama, what did they make, 9?
Yeah, they were 9 of 37, Tennessee 12 of 40.
Yeah, 9 of 37 and 12 of 40. When Tennessee would miss, you noticed it because you're hoping they were going to miss it if you're an Alabama fan. For Alabama, there was a moment there it felt like the shots were going in, and then when Tennessee started making their 14-2 run, that's when Rylands would rattle in and out, or Marks or somebody would come up short. So, yeah, it became noticeable down the stretch after they blew that 7-point lead.
There were 54 free throws taken, 40 made, so that skews it a little bit. But it was one of the worst, at least sitting on the couch watching, aesthetically one of the worst shooting games in a big game that I've seen this year. But they still score 155 points.
Yeah.
So, you still get an 81-74, which is not like, the rock fight in the 50s.
That's right. But for Alabama, they scored 71 in Knoxville, 74 in Tuscaloosa. Their 2 lowest point totals of the year in the SEC.
Yeah, and look, and Latrell Wrightsell needs to come back. I mean, I
was surprised when Taylor and I were there. Taylor Korn and I were covering the game on our social media platform. And when he came out for warm-ups and he was in street clothes, I was like, that's not a good sign. 2 games ago, we thought Wrightsell would be back and Jalen Williams would be the one missing time. Williams has now played 2 games for Auburn, and Wrightsell hadn't been back. He's missed 4 games. And I'll turn the attention quickly to Florida tomorrow night in Gainesville. How big of an underdog, and I think Alabama will be the underdog, how big of an underdog do you think Alabama will be?
Oh, I don't think it'll be big. I think it'll be like 2.5.
2.5.
It'll be about what Alabama was against Tennessee. I think Alabama ended up creeping up to 3.5, which was really surprising that it got that high, but I think it'll probably be Florida 2.5.
Lanceslock.com to keep a idea of what's going on in the betting world, both for games tonight and the ones coming up on Tuesday.
But back to Wrightsell, I mean, do you really think that they're 1 of 17 in that stretch if he's playing? I think he's good for a couple of baskets there, and that could have ultimately been the difference.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't remember seeing Devin Cosby a lot in the
Devin
the second
Cosby
half.
He played 10 total minutes,
and that was all in the first half, I believe.
And I guess all he shoots is threes.
Yeah, I don't know what he brings to you, but
he was 2 of 4. I mean, guys, look, he's got a lot of confidence.
He does. Sam Walters came in and started playing okay defensively, but it's a situation where Alabama has a tough draw at Florida. That's a really good team. Bama beat them a couple of weeks ago, 98-93 in overtime in Tuscaloosa.